Now we listen to the reading from Rays of the One Light of Swami Kriyananda. The title is Victory Demands the Courage of Conviction. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. Matthew chapter 10, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of their own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth, that is to say, that clinging to his life shall lose it, and he that lost, in other words, that giveth up his life for my sake, shall find it." God tests the firmness of our faith. The sword described here is the sword of discrimination. The struggle Jesus describes is not a war against unknown enemies, but the struggle with our own attachments to all that is nearest and dearest to us. Humanly speaking, ultimately, it is the war against the ego itself and against anything with which we are surrounded ourselves to bolster the ego's fragile sense of security. When Yogananda, as a boy, fled to the Himalayas to embrace a life of solitary meditation, he was apprehended by his older brother Ananta and brought him back home. At a certain point, before he would accept defeat, he whispered to his friend Amar, his companion of flight, "Let us slip away when opportunity offers. We can go on foot to Rishikesh." But Amar, whose brother had accompanied Ananta, had turned pessimist, declining any intention to continue this adventure. Yogananda's memorable comment on Amar's refusal was, he was enjoying the familiar warmth. The spiritual warrior rejects that familiar warmth. Rather, he reclaims the whole universe as his own home. As the Bhagavad Gita puts it in the 14th chapter, unaffected by outward joys and sorrows, or by praise and blame, secure in his divine nature, regarding with equal gaze a clod of mud, a stone, and a bar of gold, impartial towards all experiences, whether pleasant or unpleasant, firm-minded, untouched by either praise or blame, treating everyone alike, whether friend or foe, free from the delusion that in anything he does, he is the doer. Such an one has transcended nature's triune qualities. Thus, through Holy Scriptures, God has spoken to mankind. This part of the reading is difficult to accept it. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Knowing Jesus, it seems a bit strange. Without the comment of Yogananda and of Swami Kriyananda, it could be so difficult to understand. In fact, for me, it was very difficult to understand this. He actually is talking about the sword of discernment. This brings a different light, because Master that comes and brings this sword, it is a very powerful sword. It is a freeing sword of whatever attachment. Our part is that to say, yes, I want this. I want to do your will. This is actually our part. And so we draw the grace and the love of a guru that give us the power to use the sword, to use it in the right way, to use it to liberate ourselves. Once we see this expressed in the life of Swami. Once in meditation, Swami feels finally the power to let go of this ego. And he says to let it go and to throw it into the infinite. And he did this because he wrote it and he spoke about it in 3 different discourses. He says with the same tune, he said, enough with this ego. Go away. Master, I offer you this ego. And he said that it was important to do it with this power. That is the sword of discernment that cuts at the root the ego and attachments. And there was Master that was looking at the lights, and he went down and kneeled in the feet of Master, and Master said, good, this. He knew what had happened. And Swami writes that from that moment on, he had no more thoughts on himself. For most of us, it's a bit difficult to understand what this means, but Swami explains. He would say, you see something that happens, and your ego says, will I ever be able to do that? They're small, very tiny, and incredibly vast aspects of ego. And what he would say is, after I did this practice that was so powerful, I felt completely free. And he had a deep contact with God and Master that no one could interfere or destroy. But to be able to break this enchantment of the ego and all the attachments that give so much security to the ego, we have to do pranayama. Jesus also spoke about this practice when he says, love your Lord with all your love, with all your attention, with all your mind, and with all your energy. With all your energy. Yogananda said the same thing. Love God with your total attention of your mind, complete. With the total love of your heart, that is, with all your energy. This is pranayama. That means to direct all the energy inward and draw it upward to the spiritual eye, offering it to the spiritual eye. But this process starts at the base of the first chakra, and our first chakra has a tendency, one characteristic is the need of security. And if there is a strong consciousness of ego, this security, you will find it in outer things, and we become very attached to whatever that will guarantee us the love and protection that we need. Whatever, because we are attached to thousands of things, and while we are attached to all of these things, this energy cannot be directed upward. So the question of letting go attachments is very, very important in our spiritual path. This is why Jesus says, I did not come to bring peace. Sure, he came to bring peace, but the peace of the heart, not the peace of a social quality. He says, I came to bring the sword. a sword that will destroy all these attachments. For example, in this reading, Swami writes, we must let go those attachments that at a human level are the most valuable things for us, person that are more beautiful things or people for at a human level. So the attachment to human love is very deep. And this, you can say, yes, it's the right thing. From one point of view it is, but there is a very strong delusion, because it can be that you have a wonderful relationship with your mother or with your father or with your beloved, and you say, if this person is going, will not be here anymore, then what happens? Where will I find a love, that love? There is the attachment. I don't want to lose that love, because it is source of happiness. And what the Lord says is, no, my son, I love you through nature, through other things, because when these bodies of dream bodies will not be here, you will still feel my happiness and my presence. You will feel it constantly in my heart, in your heart. It actually is a difficult teaching, and this is why we need the grace of the gurus and from God, because we have to receive the grace to accept these thoughts and to go to transcend them. For example, once Swami was with Yogananda and he was talking to him. He was saying, Master, my father. And he stopped him and he said, you don't have a father. And then Swami said, I was talking about my terrestrial father. And Master said, you have one father, that is your celestial father, that is God. And Swami understood this teaching, and he immediately corrected himself. So if we are receptive, God helps us understand these things, and he helps us to use the sword that will permit us to be freed. Because you would be free inside, and this happiness will not depend on others and what others give you, or if they are present or not in your life. Attachment, for example, to material things, obviously, that gives you security. Many things you have been able to acquire, but there is so much delusion as well. If you are attached, if these things will disappear, how will you feel? Will you feel insecure? Will you feel? And God says, how is it possible? I give you everything you need, and you don't have to fear anything. I'm never distracted. As soon as you need something, you will have it. And then we have another example that comes from Swami's life, because his life is such an inspiration, because so many things happen to him. Every time I have a problem, I think about him and I say, Swami, what did you do? Because you had so much to go through. One day in 1970, the temple at the seclusion retreat in Ananda village burned. He had already this practice of non-attachment. And he felt so much serenity in that day, feeling this energy to reconstruct. But that evening, he felt that there was something that was not complete. Because he said, I do not feel gratitude for the perfection of Divine's will. Because whatever happens, there is something good. And he said, I did not feel the joy of this perfection of God's plan. So he said, God, I need to understand. And then he actually went through all the different efforts that he had gone through to construct that temple, and all the efforts that he would have needed to put out to reconstruct. And he offered everything to God, and he said, Master, I'm not attached to anything that I'm doing. I don't care whatever you decide to do with what I create, because I have really done everything just for you. So the only important thing is my love for you. In that moment, God touched his heart, and he was filled with such an incredible deep joy that he said, this incredible joy, he said, oh Lord, if just losing a temple could give me so much joy, why didn't you take the other buildings as well? I don't think that the other people of the community would have agreed, but what is the teaching? Swami had eradicated in himself the non-attachment, but he did not feel the joy. He had to connect at a deeper level with God to feel the joy. And with that joy, nothing is important, because you understand that everything is a dream. As we're listening in the affirmation, everything is a low, small wave in the infinite ocean of God. Once I went to see the waves, because they say that the waves go deep in the ocean, but in deepness the sea is not moved by the motion of the wind. And as the masters say, don't stay at the superficial movement. This is non-existent. Contact the bliss of God, and there we can do this large jump if we are not touched by external circumstances. Another story of Swami. Another thing that was not he was followed by so much persecution and lies, calumnia, and the person that was telling this was saying, I would look at Swami. He was in a trip in a court, in a law court case, and I wanted to protect him, and he said, this person says, I would be destroyed if I was sitting in his place. But this person was looking at Swami, and he was completely calm, like if he was in his house with his friends drinking tea. This was his detachment level. He actually was smiling, and there was in his eyes kindness. Swami said many times, I chose to love them. We felt this. Once he came here, he had come back to Italy after all these terrible moments. And I remember I was so astonished by the vibration of love. I forgave them. I chose to love them. So when we talk about this sword of discernment, this is a sword that Swami used to take off all of those emotions of bitterness. When we go into those emotions, there is so much confusion, interior confusion. He, with his sword, cut that delusion. I chose to love. This is a power that comes from God. In fact, in the Bible it said, whoever has accepted this has accepted to be the Son of God. This is a power that is given to you. God, the Lord says, my thoughts are different to yours. Your ways are different to mine. And this is also a thought that is difficult to digest for humanity, because with faith we have to go to what masters tell us, go inward. For example, the practice that Shivani guided before, this sense of relaxation, of detachment from things. They're only small waves in the surface of the sea. Yogananda says, I'm a small wave of consciousness, that it will be immersed at one point in the ocean of bliss. It is not easy to let go these attachments that are strong, large, big things that we bring from many incarnations. But Swami once again gives us counsel to use affirmations. Affirmation as attitude with our meditation practice. The affirmation that says, my only reality is God. Affirmation is something that is really there for us because we need a courageous act of willpower. That's where everything starts. Yes, I want this. After the affirmation gives hold, radicates, because we have to really connect to the Lord. This is very personal, but when you connect to this high reality, then you feel that a sense of courage and faith flows, and you understand what the right attitude is, what the right thing to do, what the right thing to say. Everything else comes one after another that will give you, just tend towards a powerful flow of light. There's a book where Swami speaks about this aspect, Religions of the New Era, where he says, every time that I was in a difficult situation, I always affirmed, this is not my reality. It's a reality of a dream, but it's not my reality. My only reality is God, where the center of calmness is in my heart, where the center of calmness is in my heart. Waves are in the surface, but inside, in the deepness, the calm center of God is not touched. It's motionless. If I'm there, I am not moved by whatever tempest is outside. And he would say, even if I had not realized a liberation, only this affirmation would permit me to be calm in really difficult circumstances that would have whoever be in a crisis. And then he would say that he would have this sense of gratitude of being towards the Lord. This gratitude, as the story of the temple, when you are connected in this calm center inside of you, you can overcome everything. Yogananda says, when all your attention, all the love of your heart and all of your energy is in the spiritual eye, at that point, the ego dissolves. Their tendency is to consider good or bad ego as an enemy. It actually is the soul. It's the same thing. It's the soul that is identified in the body, not in the light, but identified in the personality, in this delusional reality. So if we practice with strength, the ego resists. It doesn't work like that. Hours and hours of meditation, kriyas, it doesn't work like this. Because we need intensity and devotion. When you are full of the love of God, when you want to abandon yourself to God, masters guarantee that the ego will not resist and will offer itself to God. This is the secret. In the heart, we should have the affirmation of this conviction, courageous conviction. I want to live this reality. I know that if my willpower is there, clear and aware, I will be helped. And then try your practices, whatever practices are, in whatever path you're following. Don't forget that you must abandon yourselves, abandon your ego to a higher reality, because if there is the ego, there is a sense of separation, and ego tries to tell us that we are not light, we are not divine. But when we affirm, and especially we start living and drawing all the energy toward upward, the ego will dissolve. So now I conclude with a thought of Swami Kriyananda. It is a letter that he wrote to a devotee in 1964 that says, "Dear, renunciation to me means to embrace the world, not reject it, but to embrace it as spirit. For how can this little body seize the world as its own? One little body, one little family, one little circle of friends, one true love. And all of these a ceaseless reminder that this is all we are, a body, a little ego, a silly fool to whom the preoccupation of 1 hourglass of a lifetime loom as large as eternity. Long and long have I lived in such a cocoon. It is time now to spread my wings and fly into omnipresence. A butterfly of eternity, such do I long to be. Let me sing with the symphony of all atoms, dance with the rhythms of all life, thrill to the flute of God's love that hides like Krishna from the gopis behind every tree of cosmic manifestation. This is for me renunciation, to kick aside pettiness and limitation and to embrace infinity. This is my desire for all of you."
Signore